Shalom Aleichem Rabbi Sai. This is Yehuda Levin, and this is part 2 of our international broadcast of Parshas Acharei Mois post Pesach 5779. The first half was done in Eretz Yisrael, and now on Thursday during the day, I am now posting the second half on YouTube. The first half is only on WhatsApp and the radio. There is a little bit of discordance because I was in the middle of something left off in Eretz Yisrael discussing the unholy trinity of feminism, Mishkav Zohar and Amalek, and I'm going to get back to that, but I want to quote unquote interrupt this program to inform the greater tzibur that might not be aware that my son Yosef Aryeh Levin will be getting married in Yirtzeh Hashem on Rosh Chodesh, Motzei Shabbos Kodesh. This Motzei Shabbos Kodesh, an unusual time, but they wanted to do it on Rosh Chodesh, and all of the chasna halls were taken. It's going to be, I think the place is called Tiferes Rivka in Borough Park, called for 10 o'clock Motzei Shabbos. It promises to be in Yirtzeh Hashem a very lebedika chasna, and I want to, in the name of the chasna and kala, invite you all, Kol Dichvan Yosef Yechel, whoever wants to come to participate, to be misameach with us on the chasna, on the occurrence of the chasna of my son Yosef Aryeh Halevi Levin and his kala Chana Wall. And I want to take this opportunity to wish each and every member of Klal Yisrael Simchas. The Chedush Harim says that when somebody is a Baal Simcha, the name Baal Simcha, the reason he's called Baal Simcha, why isn't he just called, say, Misameach or Hamisameach or something like that, or Soimeach? Why is he called, rather, Soimeach? He's somebody who's happy, you can make people happy. Baal Simcha means that he is a Baal, he is an owner, he has a particular shaykhus connection at this time in his or her life with Simcha, that they can be mashpia, they can influence, they can help to project Simcha on others. So I want to take this time where I am a Baal Simcha to be mispalot HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that each and every member of our audience and the greater Klal Yisrael should have only simchas and nachas and good things and good holy spiritual ruchnistic events happening to them. Ken Yehi Ratzon. And it happens to be that I'm a double Baal Simcha because when I was in Eretz Yisrael this past Monday, on the very yahrzeit, the yahrzeit of the Kavura, the first year of the yahrzeit goes after the Kavura of my nephew, the Tzaddik Rabbi Yisrael Halevi Levin, Zechroina Levrocha, the son of my dear brother Shaya Levin. On that self-same day, my son Yebad L'chaim Tov Meruchim Yisrael Levin had a son in Eretz Yisrael. I had to come back because I needed to be at the chasna and my ticket also. So I will be unable to be at the bris, but in Yirtzeh Hashem on Monday, hopefully in Eretz Yisrael, my son will be making a bris on his son. So there's a ruach of simcha. I want to be lecha ezbach zavach toida v'shem Hashem ekra nidorei laHashem hashalem negdano lechol amay. I want to be mafarsim to everyone. It started out my simcha. I was b'chatzos beis Hashem b'sachech Yishalayim, and now I'm here in America, and I would wish to be mafarsim and to give a hoidot HaKadosh Baruch Hu on these two tremendous life cycle events, simchas, both the marriage of a son in Yirtzeh Hashem and the forthcoming bris of a nephew. Ach toiv li Yisrael, this should only be good to all Yisraelim from now on, and we should only hear simchas and good things. My Reverend Rabbi Sai, I was giving a long peroration on the connection of feminism, Mishkav Zohar and Amalek. I spoke to my brother, the tremendous Talmud Chacham, Rav Eliyahu Levin. He disagrees with me very much. He says that which a woman is tough, is mean, she schrei, she's stark, or she does the things that Chava did, that I recited, that she either was kvitching and rushing, she was shrilling to force her husband, Adam Rishon, to eat from the forbidden fruit, or she was actually chasing him, like it seems to be from the Balaturim. She was hitting him with a tree, with tree branches. That this is not feminism, this is regular womanism, that if you're not Zaycha, it's not feminism. And I disagree very strong with my brother. I believe that these are the antecedents of feminism. The broader meaning of feminism is when a woman is improperly utilizing the gifts that she was given to be mashpia in a positive sense on her husband, and it says she's using it for her own agenda to advance herself, not as an azer, but as a kenegdoi. In other words, kenegdoi is feminism, and kenegdoi to an extreme, the trickle-down effect of that feminism is in media, in politics, in the culture, etc. And I believe that that's more than esoterically, in a very, very, without getting into the esoteric, I believe that this is connected. This leads, as I explained in the first half hour, this leads in many cases to Mishkav Zachar. In other words, Mishkav Zachar is the opposite of what the zivug of an Ish and Isha is supposed to be about. Ish and Isha, the zivug is that each one is obtaining from the other and is receiving pleasure, but is giving chesed and pleasure to the other person in a template that the conduct of that template can bring the ultimate chesed to bring other creatures, other creations, children, into the world. And feminism is, it has many manifestations. Some of them is, I don't need a husband, I don't need a regular I don't need a partner all the time, I don't need to be subject to that person, he is not my Baal, I rankle, I'm outraged. How can it be that the Lashon HaKodesh word for husband is Baal? Baal, my boss, what kind of business is this? And it's explained in Sfarim, I think even the Rambam, there cannot be a co-equal type of situation. You can't have two captains running the ship. That was the story with the sun and the moon. There were two sons, and one son came to the Rebbeinu Shalom and complained, how can there be two? So Hashem said, Lech miyat atzmacha. Go minimize yourself. They became the moon. That became the moon. Klal Yisrael is considered like the moon. We're considered like, so to speak, the zivug of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Anyhow, enough said on belaboring this. I think it's fairly obvious. Now, homosexuality, Mishkav Zachar, to a certain extent, I believe when there's too much feminism in the world, so therefore the male of the species becomes spiritually, physically, emotionally emasculated. He becomes removed from the general masculine abilities and attributes that he has, part of which is procreative. And therefore, it's literally, it seems that in our times now, that men simply even have a lesser, biologically, a lesser ability, a lesser sperm count, a lesser ability to procreate children, the scientists have noticed. This is all similar to a kihiskis kolbasa darkai. So at that time, the Chazal tell us that the animals were miscopulating. They were acting in a way that was not normal for animals to assignate with each other properly. And it's interesting that they say that in San Francisco, excuse the double entendre, the fegelich, the birds, are involved in a homosexual nature at certain times. So that's also because, again, things have a profound impact, and ultimately ideas, institutions, misbehaviors, and Midah Tov Meruva, positive behaviors, have a tremendous impact on the environment. So that's just to explain that a proliferation of feminism, I believe, leads to people, men gender, feeling safer or attracted to other people of the same species, either as a replacement value for their father, or a replacement value for a woman that they are consciously or subconsciously afraid of, or browbeaten by, whatever it may be. Now, this is also, I believe, connected with Amalek, because you have to understand that the very, very beginning of history, the snake is the harbinger and the forebearer. The snake is the representative of the Satan, the acharei. So Shaga Silverstein Zechron Levracha brought down in one of his svarim, in English svarim, he brought down a zoya that says that the Satan was riding on the snake like a horse and a rider, meaning that the snake was being directed. He was the representative, the embodiment of the evil inclination, of the evil temptation. And therefore, that created Chava as a force independent and not subjugated to her husband. Au contraire, she started to assume a bossism that she was not entitled to, and she started to browbeat her husband, either verbally, physically, or the combination thereof, which led him to commit the cosmic sin from which we all suffer. This was the antecedents of Amalek, that negativity that was injected into the spiritual body politic, if you will, genetic spiritual code, to bring Ra into this spiritual code, genetic spiritual code of humanity. That Ra stayed until it was Poskazu Amos, and until it stopped at the time of Kabbalah Satera by Har Sinai, and they became like Adam and Chava originally. But with the Chet Egel, it reemerged. And this is the Amalek. This is Amalek, the Amalek that's inside us. And Amalek is an individual, as a separate force, but it's basically the Amalek, the negative that's inside us that we have to struggle with. And Amalek, as we saw from Rashi, Amalek, Asher Korcha B'derech, is Mishkav Zohar, because this is a type of selfishness, and this is a type of antithesis, being antithetical to the gift that Hashem gave of Al-Kain, Yazav Ishas of Yisima Yidbak Vishnu V'Hoy L'Basa Echad, that selflessness, that giving, at the same time the getting pleasure, is also giving, etc. So again, I don't have to belabor this point anymore. The fact of the matter is that, and in our time we see it very clearly, that there is an unholy trinity. Feminism, which helps, it leads to a certain extent. Homosexuality is there independent of feminism, but what I'm explaining is from a historic perspective, homosexuality is also facilitated in greater measure, in greater proliferation, in greater number, with greater percentage, with greater frequency as a result of feminism. And that which Adam was moiled, Adam did not have a homosexual relationship. There wasn't anybody to homosexualize, if you will. I'm not saying if there was, he would have, but I'm saying he did the next thing, which was he was moiled, shalid, validin through Hitzar Zer Levatala, and Mishkav Zachar is very much involved in that concept of Moitzi Zer Levatala, to do with this great gift of life that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you, to misuse it and to bring negative forces, Shadin Velil, and He demons and She demons, and Moitzi Zer Levatala, which is what the whole Shofim is about. So this was a thought that I had, that I've developed with you. And I believe that there's a lot of truth and a lot of veracity to this. I want to continue. I can't remember. I lose track of what Torahs I put on the WhatsApp and what Torahs I put on my radio program from week to week in the YouTube. But I want to take this opportunity to please urge each and every person that the kinds of analysis, the kinds of divrei Torah v'hashkafa that you hear on this program, is, and on the YouTube, etc., is available. It's available, Rabbi Sai. It's available to be heard sometimes several times a day on our WhatsApp. And please spread the word and become a member of the Rabbi Levin Live WhatsApp. You can text me with your name and phone number. You can WhatsApp me, personal message me with your name and phone number to 718-469-6999, 718-469-6999, and you could be added to the WhatsApp group, and you could You could hear a lot of insights that I don't have a chance, and interesting discussion on current events and analysis that I don't necessarily have a chance to post in my 1-hour radio program on YouTube. Once again, I want to appeal to anybody who's capable of providing help for this radio program, to help me fund this radio program. Again, you could personal message me or WhatsApp me at 718-469-6999 and indicate your willingness to help. It would be a tremendous mitzvah, a tremendous chus. It's neitel schaken neget kulam for this valuable work we're doing. You could email me at rabbilevin@gmail.com. And I would sincerely appreciate your help, because it's very, very difficult for me to self-fund this radio program. Moving on, I would like to get back to something that I may have discussed. In the past programs, but I want to buttress it. That and it's Indian because this the very week after Pesach. And my son, Yosef Aryeh Halevi Levin's chasna, this Motzei Shabbos. So we're thinking there's a connection of Kosher Zivugin Shel Yisrael, Kriyas Yamsuf. We spoke about at length, that the Yamsuf split in the chus of Yosef. Hayom Rav Vayonas Ma'aroya Aroinu Shel Yosef. It's for the Aaron of Yosef. And since Yosef is Vayonas Hachutza, he ran away from a bad Zivug. Eishes Potifar was telling him, I saw Bistagninus, and astrologically that we're supposed to be together with Zebah. She came to him not only with a physical seduction, but a great spiritual seduction. And he withstood her blandishments and her attempted seduction. And he ran away. He ran away from an improper zivik. So he was zoicha to his proper zivik with Osnas, which he might have gotten anyhow. But who says that he would have had shiftei kah? Obviously, if he would have sinned with Potiphar, Yeshes Potiphar, he wouldn't have been zoicha to 2 shiftei kah, and he was supposed to get 12 shiftei kah, as we know from the fact that Binyamin named 10 children after Yosef, because 10 tipos, 10 drops left him, as Yaakov says in his bracha to Yosef, and therefore he was only zoicha for 2 shvatim. The 2 shvatim is a tremendous thing that no other shevet was zoicha to be like a demi-of, a partial of. He's a mamutza. He's an intermediary between the of and the regular shvatim, and the regular other shvatim, his brothers. That's why he is going to spawn is maybe an improper word, he's going to produce Mashiach ben Yosef from one of his children, Ephraim or Menashe. So therefore, I want to add, I was discussing this Dvar Torah with a yeshiva bacher in the airport waiting to fly to Moscow, and on the way back to America. And as I was speaking, as often happens when you repeat a Dvar Torah, Hashem gives you another facet, another beautiful aspect of the Dvar Torah, which is sweet and which is to be succored. Succored is S-U-C-C-O-R, not sucker with a C-K. To be succored, to enjoy the sweetness of it. So it could be that kosher he is. So what does it mean? Kosher zivugin shel yamsuf, kriyas yamsuf. It sounds to me it's so hard, like a kriyas yamsuf. So I said, au contraire, it might be a double entendre. Hashem has a sense of humor. Tell me, was it hard for Hashem to do his kriyas yamsuf? Kriyas yamsuf is a du partzufim. It's a double situation. To us, it looks like, wow, it's the hardest thing in the world. It goes against nature. The whole sea should split, etc., etc. But Hashem, it only takes a second. Hashem gets in the teyadcha, and all of a sudden it splits. The same thing with zivugim. Maybe that's what it means, kosher kriyas yamsuf. That's something that you, human being, think it's so hard for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It only takes a snap. It only takes a minute. And it was gone yesterday, but it's here today. Quickly, it's all of a sudden it's here. So kosher kriyas yamsuf is it difficult? Who is it talking about difficult? For the people, you might think it's a kriyas yamsuf for you personally. It's a matter of opinion. It's a matter of feeling. It's a matter of attitude. If a person goes through with an attitude, he's cool, he's calm, he's collected, he's gelassen, he's chilled out. Hashem will provide for me, man or woman will provide my thing. I'm making my hishtadlis, and that's it. Then it's kriyas yamsuf will come like kriyas yamsuf. He'll split it. He'll make it for you. And you go, and you think it's koichi ve'etzim yadi. It's you. Then it's taka kriyas yamsuf. So anyhow, I want to add on. What I'm adding on is that what Yosef did. What Yosef did by running from an incorrect zivug, and therefore being merited to a proper zivug, which was then emulated by the waters, that they split for Klal Yisrael. They ran away from each other. The water separated, which is running away. So from the one zivug of water connects with each other. And then it came back together to destroy the negative aspects, the anti-Klal Yisrael aspects of the Egyptians. So this causes. So I don't know if I said this in the last half hour or not, the first half hour. So let me repeat it. I was davening, and V'hayil is all about zivug, and V'hayil Shisha is historically Hashem destroys the bad enemies, and then all of a sudden it mixes in Yas Alayich Alikayim says Chasna Kala. What's the connection of those things? Hashem destroys the enemies from Melis Chasna Kala Zivug. So the answer is yes. Enochanami. The biggest destruction of our enemies in the most manifest way of all times was Kriyas Yamsuf, where there only remained one, Pari. And the whole world sees it, and the whole world records it, and the whole world continues to subscribe to it, to believe it, to talk about it, and to know about it. And it's even featured by Charlton Heston when he acted as Moses to split the Red Sea in Hollywood. It's known all over to billions of people for all times. So that caused that Vayimin of Hashem Moshe Avdoi, Zekeli Van Vehu, the Shira on the part of Klal Yisrael, which drew them closer to Hashem. And therefore Hashem was very proud of them. And that was a huge step in Yosis Alayich Alikayach, Kim Seis Chasna Kala. Hashem rejoiced with them. That zivug relationship between Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to fruition to a certain extent, to a significant extent, at the Reed Sea, at the Kriyas Yamsuf, as a result of the Kriyas Yamsuf. And therefore, and then there's the Rebbe Eliezer Zessler concept. The concept is that when you do chesed to somebody else, you draw close with that person. So not only do we draw close to Hashem because we're the recipients of His largesse, of His munisif, and of His love and His salvation, but Hashem draws Kaviyachol closer to us because He's doing for us, and because He did such a big thing of Ahayolim Shisha Shasayich. When He does that, so then Yasalach Alikayach from His, with a capital H, from His perspective, it becomes Yasalach Alikayach. So it works both ways. Each party feeds into the other, etc., etc. So therefore, I want to suggest that each and every zivug of all time, a little bit of a zivug, as I explained to that young man, that bacher, that prospective chassan, I explained to him as follows. A person's zivug is based on many things. It's based on how he conducted himself for the first 20 odd years of his life, and his Torah and his chesed and his mitzvahs. It's based on his tefillas. It's based on his parents and his chus avos. It's based on the things that his kala, unbeknownst to him, is doing in her ruchnius that helps forge him as a man and helps each of them find each other. They're both building each other up. The chassan and the kala, because they were predestined to each other. They were bashared from Abam Yom Koyim L'Siyas Avalad. So when Chaim was learning good in yeshiva, it's because Elki was busy davening and saying Tehillim, etc., and doing Torah mitzvahs and chesed. Even if she wasn't mechavan, it should help for her chassan. But it works that way because they're really v'hoyu l'basar echad. They were in upstairs before they came down. They were one unit. And therefore, what they do has an impact on each other. So all these things feed into who your zivug is going to be and how the zivug is going to relate to you. A partial percentage of that, I believe, according to what I'm saying now, is that what Yosef HaTzadik did by rejecting the negative zivug and therefore getting and meriting to engage in the positive zivug, that had an impact not only on Kriyas Yamsuf at that time and on the Yotzes Alayich Alikayach Kim Seis Chasna Kala, and the beautiful feelings and closeness between HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Klal Yisrael and Klal Yisrael to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But ipso facto, as a catalyst of that, it also means that in every zivug that Klal Yisrael ever makes, a part of that zivug is because of what Yosef HaTzadik did and didn't do, and they can commit, and because of that, concomitantly, or as a result of that, the Yamsuf splitting and that leading to an ultimate zivug of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael at that time, which, although it diminished afterwards with the sin, it's going to reoccur when Mashiach, in the Mashiach Zeitness, is going to reoccur, where it's going to be by Alayich Esayich, the ultimate zivug of Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now it's like an engagement period, if you will. So that impacts on our shidduch as well. Again, what I'm saying is that the Kriyas Yamsuf epic has to do with every shidduch that ever happens in Klal Yisrael. A little bit is from Kriyas Yamsuf. And that's another meaning of Kosher Zivuga, Shaladim, Kriyas Yamsuf. It's also a remes, a hint that the schus of Kriyas Yamsuf and of the zivug that we had with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, at that time, that triggers that we should have the ability to do zivugim today, because just like under the chuppah, it's a three-way zivug, if you will. So chosna the kala, and it's the relationship of Hashem to all of Klal Yisrael is chosna the kala, and it's the relationship of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ish ve'isha shchina shuya beinei, which is also a form of a zivug, if you will. Okay, so now we have less than 4 minutes to go, and I think we've covered two important aspects here. We have to understand that there is an unholy triumvirate, a trinity of feminism, Mishkav Zohar, which is Amalek. Amalek is a big characteristic of Amalek is that anti-zivug of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. Now, that selfishness, and you see a little bit of that in, as I've said, Purim time by the Megillah. You see, it says Haman spoke to Oyhavav Vizeris Ishtoi. So who's Oyhavav? Before, I believe that's an allusion to the fact that he was an Amaleki and he had Oyhavim, Mishkav Zach. It's an illusion. You understand? That's not the only meaning. That's one of the byproducts of the formation of the way it was given in the Megillah, that it didn't say Zeres Ishtoi v'Oyhavav, normally a wife. And then later on, Zeres Ishtoi is telling him, do this and this, and if you do this and this, this and that, there's a little bit of feminism there also, a Zeresh type feminism, and that's associated with Amalek, if you will. That's a little more cloudy. I don't have time to elaborate, and I haven't fully brought this out to fruition, but enough said on this subject. So the point that I want to make to the Yiddish vibrant Klal Yisrael is that who can say that in the way they dress, in the way they conduct themselves with their husband, their children, in life, etc., that some of the feminism of the Welt has not crept into Klal Yisrael. Is definitely there big time, and that has a lot to do with the increase in the divorce rate, because you can't have ein shtei malachim mishamshim b'keser echad. And therefore, this is going to continue apace, chas v'shalom. This is going to continue. In other words, it's all connected. Our turning the other cheek to the homosexualization of society and being comfortable with considering voting for an Oisvarfika, Prutzka, like Flatbush Mama, in a special election on May 15th, chas v'shalom, to vote for her. She who supports dialogue with the Mishkav Yizachar, who's friendly with the transvestites, who's pushing all that acharei. Now she's making herself like a big tzaddikish. She's there to fight for yeshivas. She doesn't even send her own children to yeshivas. She sends them to charter school. Number one, because yeshivas probably won't take in her kids, because who wants such an obvious uber feminist as of Rosh Hashanah would say, mamish a feminazi type thing, that she's turning Yiddishkeit on its head. And then she herself said she doesn't want her children in yeshivas. They shouldn't be able to control her. This is feminism. This is feminism. Is it a wonder that she's talking about dialoguing with the gays, and she expresses herself in one of her YouTube videos that she had a flirtation with trying to figure out if she's a lesbian or not? That's right. It's out there. I didn't say this. She did. She did. And when she was asked directly a question, are you bisexual or anything like that, she wouldn't even answer no. Go to the tape. Go see it. She is one mixed up, dangerous person. And chas v'shalom, the Fruma Yidden should vote for. But there's a general kaltkeit, ashakocha, malaise, that people in the Frum community are turning the other cheek to the lowlifes, the politicians, the nudnikim, etc., etc. And therefore, after 120 years, we're going to come up, the women will come up, find out because of their feminism, lemetzel, shishur vi, they caused a certain amount of the proliferation of Mishkav Zohar. Again, we're not talking in absolute terms. We're talking in partialities, but you should understand there's a cause and effect of everything in the universe, everything that's done that has to do with Yidden, etc. A lot of times the negative things that happen, the shayris, the seedling of what happens outside in events that seemingly have nothing to do with us, have to do with us in the seedlings type thing, okay? When there's an earthquake, the earthquake is brought about, it says in Brachas and Talmud, because of Mishkav Zachar. So therefore, when there's a proliferation of Mishkav Zohar, that causes earthquakes, both by the Gentiles and it could even be by us. So we have to understand, we have to be by the Gatzitis, we have to check in and realize, and we have to do better, and we can do better. Let this time of Sfira be a time of introspection, and let us be Zoicha to Kol Tuv Sela Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. I'll see you with the Chasna and Yesa Hashem, Motzei Shabbos Kodesh, 10 o'clock, Tveres Rivka. Until then, a guten Tamid Kol Tuv.